All right, welcome. So, this video is why you stopped making progress. This is actually more of a story about me and a process that I just went through, or an experience that I just went through in my own journey, where I basically I don't know how I ended up here, right? But I basically had completely stopped self improvement for about a 3 to 4 month period of time. And I didn't even realize that I was getting to this stage. But now looking back, I can see exactly what led to how I ended up here in this position, and then basically how I got out of that as well. So, my story, how I actually ended up stopping my self improvement. So, we can rewind about, we can rewind about 9 months now, September. I started my YouTube channel on January 1st of January 2nd of 2024. And that's when I made my first YouTube video. I recorded it, I uploaded it. I was on a 3-day fast at this time. I was shooting for 7. I couldn't quite make 7 because this was my first actual fast. So I made it 3 days. I didn't quite get all the way to 7 yet, but we're still working on that one. I made my first YouTube video at this time. And this was a time when I was really focused on my self-improvement journey. This was a time when I was really grinding. I was in school, but I was trying my best to still make progress outside of school when I had time. I was actually working on a couple different business models in school. So I would go to school, go to class, and just be on my phone working on a couple different businesses. So I was basically completely focused on business at the time. I was trying to start something, get something moving where I could actually make some money, but in a way that I could also still focus on my self-improvement and still focus on my snowboarding journey and my athletic journey. So I basically wanted to optimize my business to be able to still work on fitness and self-improvement. So I was basically just looking for a couple different business models. I was looking into a lot of passive income models and a lot of basically just businesses that I just didn't want to be in, that I didn't enjoy being in. And so that's why I started YouTube, because I knew YouTube would take some time. And so I knew that in the meantime, if I'm going to try to do something to make some money right up front, I can do these businesses on the side of YouTube, but YouTube should be my main focus and priority. So that's how it ended up being. YouTube was my main focus. YouTube was my main priority. But at a certain point, I basically fell off of my self-improvement due to addiction and due to just mindset shifts. And I ended up starting to lose focus on what my real goal was. I started to basically become confused. I was going through a lot of self-discovery as well. So I wasn't able to do a lot of the self-improvement stuff. I was doing a lot more internal work than anything else. So I was basically just focused completely on the internal world and completely focused on basically overcoming my internal self-doubts, my lack of real direction and real focus on my goals, the questioning of whether my goals were even right for me, the questioning of whether I maybe picked the wrong goals, or if I had just lost focus and gotten so far off that it felt like these weren't the right goals, even though they were actually what I did want to pursue. So I was just going through a lot of questioning, self-doubt, and internal work. But then all of a sudden I found myself slowly easing out of the self-improvement habits. And during the time, I didn't even notice. But looking back, I can see I was basically slowly, progressively deloading all of the habits that I built up over the last 2 years. And then it got to a point where I basically completely stopped exercising. I think I've read 3 books in the last few months, the last 4 to 5 months. Sorry if you can hear that car honking in the background. I basically completely stopped my fitness journey. I haven't read any real books in a while. I haven't read through a book in a while. Like I said, I've read 2 or 3. And I was basically only able to do business work. The only work I was actually doing was business related. But what I realized was I stopped performing in my videos. I stopped having real knowledge to share, right? I basically lost touch and lost connection with that part of myself that I was becoming and creating. I lost touch with that higher version of myself that was actually on YouTube teaching this valuable information to other people. I lost touch with that, right? I became out of tune with the inflow of information that allowed me to actually have real knowledge to share. And so I realized I was basically closing myself off to my higher timeline and my highest potential. I was closing myself off to this version of myself that I was actually becoming and trying to become. And it was weird because I realized this was happening at a point when I started to make the most progress. And so this is what I realized. It was an internal doubt. It was self-doubt that caused me to give up when I had started making real progress. That caused me to back off when I actually started to move into this timeline, because there was a part of me that still didn't believe I was capable or that I was ready, right? A part of me that did not believe I was ready to do this, was capable of becoming this person, right? It was a doubt and it was a fear. It was a fear of what would happen if I did become this person, right? And so out of both fear and doubt for myself, I ended up easing out of this as I was at a point when I was starting to make the most progress. And so I was at a breakthrough. And because I was at a breakthrough, that's when I actually started to back off. That's when I actually started to ease out of it all, right? I started to give up on myself because I was at this point where I was breaking through, where I was actually becoming a new version of myself. And this was a lot for me to handle because it took so much work to get here. It took a lot of emotion. It took a lot of effort. It took a lot of pain and suffering, right? But now that I was here, I didn't feel like I was ready. And so unconsciously, I took myself out of that routine. I took myself away from the self-improvement habits, right? And as a result, I stopped making progress. And in fact, I started making progress backwards in the opposite direction. And that's when I caught myself. I was like, holy shit, I feel like I did when I started self-improvement. I feel like I did when I first started, before I even was fully on self-improvement. I felt like that months ago. After 2 years of being on self-improvement, I started to feel like how I did before I started. And that's when I realized I was not only off self-improvement, but I was also just making progress in the reverse direction. I stopped making progress and started making progress backwards. Right? And so this realization allowed me to catch myself and then hop back onto my self-improvement journey. So if you would like to stop wasting your potential and start making more progress, go ahead and join Self-Improvement Synthesized. That is the first link in the description. This is my only product that I sell. I sell Self-Improvement Synthesized, and I do coaching on the side of that. So go ahead and check that out. I am very proud of what is inside Self-Improvement Synthesized and the journey and the transformation that you will go through if you do decide to join. So go ahead and join Self-Improvement Synthesized, and I will see you guys inside there. But without further ado, we can now get into the video. So how progress actually works, right? So we need challenge. We need to be challenged in order to make progress. We need to face something that is difficult in order for us to actually overcome that challenge, overcome that difficulty, becoming a better version of ourselves in the process, right? So we cannot continuously work at our skill level. We need to work just above our skill level, right? Just above, so that we are challenging ourselves in a way that allows us to actually progress closer to a higher version of us, right? So we are looking to challenge ourselves. We are looking to find something that is difficult, not too difficult, but difficult, so that it challenges us, so that it forces us to find a way through, so that it forces us to actually break old barriers, old belief systems, old versions of ourselves down to become stronger, to become better in order to handle this challenge, right? This leads to growth. This is how we create growth. We challenge ourselves, and in challenging ourselves, we force ourselves to break down the current barriers of who we are, the current limitations that we set on ourselves, and actually become a better version, become a stronger version, right? And in doing so, again, like I said, in doing so, we grow, we make progress, right? This is actually how we progress in life, is by challenging ourselves. So, what is the purpose of doing this? The purpose of doing this is so that we can constantly become higher and higher versions of ourselves. Because if we are stuck at where we currently are, we're dying. We are either growing or we're dying. I am sure you've heard this before, but it is the truth. If you are not growing, if you are not evolving, you are dying, right? Life will kill off those who are stagnant, because stagnancy does not actually exist in this world. Nothing can be stagnant forever. You are always moving in a direction. And so if you stop moving, you are actually moving towards death, right? And so you need to keep moving forward. You need to keep growing. You need to keep progressing, because otherwise you will move closer to death, right? And in doing so, you lose your progress, right? Just like I painted the picture, I stopped self-improvement for a little while. It's not that I didn't go anywhere. It's not that I just stopped making progress. It's actually that I started losing progress. I started losing momentum. I started going backwards, right? I started getting closer to death. And death in this case is representative of death of the new self, death of the soul, death of the spirit, death of the ambition, right? This is something that we do not want to lose. This is something that we do not want to experience the death of, right? And so in order to nurture the growth of this, instead, we need to continuously pursue our goals. We need to actually move towards our goals, right? The best thing that you can do for yourself, the best form of self-care is to go and achieve your fucking goals, because you sit here all day long thinking about them, but you don't move towards them, right? This is a painful state to be in, right? This is exactly what I was going through. I was thinking about all the goals I wanted to do. I was visualizing them. I was seeing them. I was desiring them, but not moving towards them, not taking the steps towards them. And this creates pressure internally, and it creates an immense amount of stress, right? Not to mention the fact that if you don't pursue your goal and you miss the opportunity, you will be left with regret for the rest of your life, right? And so the purpose of growth, right? The purpose of this challenge is to eventually pursue a higher goal, right? We need to achieve a higher goal than where we currently are, right? We need to go and pursue the highest version of ourselves. So you challenge yourselves to basically grow a little bit. And the purpose of doing this is so that we can move towards closer and closer to eventually an end goal that is higher than us, that is beyond us right now, right? So pursuit of this higher goal is what leads us to growing and becoming a better version of ourselves. So not only having a goal, but actually going and pursuing it is very, very vital. It's very essential for happiness, fulfillment, but also life itself, right? You as a human will not be able to survive if you do not move towards your goal. Eventually you will start to decay. Eventually you will start to die. And you'll notice, you'll feel it, right? If you observe people who are in old age, right? Those who have purpose are much, much, much healthier than those who don't. And this is consistent across all boards. Those who know what they are there to do, those who have a purpose and are moving towards it, are always healthier, are always much happier, much clearer, much more fulfilled, smarter, more intelligent, stronger, right? Because they have this means of growth. They're constantly pursuing the better version of themselves. They're constantly pursuing the higher version of themselves, right? And so in doing so, they constantly grow. And if they're constantly growing, death cannot beat them, right? Life, nature cannot beat them down, because beating them down is exactly what they need in order to grow more. They grow more because of that, right? You try to beat someone down who has a goal, they end up closer to their goal than beforehand, right? And so it's important for us to prioritize having a real goal, prioritize having a real valid goal that we desire to move towards, and then actually going and moving towards that specific goal. So, why you actually stopped progressing? You aren't challenged, right? You stopped making progress because you are not challenged, right? Because the goal that you set for yourself or what you're currently doing day to day isn't challenging enough, right? And so because of that, you stopped progressing, right? If you stop challenging yourself in your day to day, if you stop progressing, if you stop pursuing difficulty, right? Let's say you're training a lot, you stop that training, right? You're not going to keep growing because you take the challenge away, right? If you aren't challenging yourself, if you aren't pushing yourself, if self-improvement doesn't feel like it did when you first started, right? If it doesn't feel that difficult. And I've heard, I'm pretty sure it was Hamza, but I've heard people talking about like in the gym, when you go to the gym and you start working out in the gym, eventually it gets easier, right? He was making the example that if you are in the gym for long enough, eventually it gets easy. But you should actually still feel like your first workouts, right? Because you should be pushing yourself more as you make that progress. And so if you stop challenging yourself, if self-improvement feels easy now, right, you aren't going to keep making progress, right? You aren't going to keep progressing because it has become easy, right? Because you've stopped challenging yourself. The other thing is that you have no real goal, right? If you don't have a real goal, if you don't have an actual clear and intentional goal, you won't be able to make progress because you don't know where you're going, right? If you don't know where you're going, how can you progress? How can you move towards that? How can you evolve, become a better version of yourself, right? If you don't know where you're going, right? If you don't know what the purpose of that evolution is, right? We only evolve because there's something within that next state that we seek, that we desire, right? And so we have to have a clear goal in order to reach that next state, that higher state, right? And the next thing is that you don't want it bad enough. If you don't want the thing you're pursuing bad enough, you won't be able to go and pursue it. And therefore, you won't make progress because progress is made in the pursuit towards the goal. And so if you aren't actually pursuing the goal because it's not what you really want, if you don't want it bad enough, then you won't make any real progress, right? If you don't want it bad enough, you'll sit there and think about it, dream about it, but you won't actually go and do it. And so you have to want it. You have to really want it. You have to want it bad enough to go and do the work, right? The work is hard. The work is difficult. And so you have to be able to become the version of you that is capable of doing it, that wants to do it. And the only version of you that wants to do it is the one that wants the outcome, is the one that wants the goal, that actually really truly desires to reach that outcome and that goal. And then the last thing is internal blocks. If you have internal blocks, if you have self-doubt, if you have, if you're fearful, right? If you believe that a certain amount of money is too much money, right? If you believe you can't do something because this other person's been doing it since they were a kid, so obviously they're this good, I can't do that, right? If you have these beliefs, these will stop you from making progress. And so no matter how hard you work, no matter how clear you are on your goal, you'll always be stopped at the same point or different points if you have multiple different internal blocks, right? You'll be stopped at the same point over and over and over again. So just like I did, I made a lot of progress, right? And then as I was about to break through, I basically gave up, right? Because I had created this internal belief that I couldn't do it. And so once I reached the threshold, even though it would have been just as easy for me to cross it as all of the work I've been doing up until that point, right? I couldn't cross it because I did not believe that I was ready. And so you need to address these internal blocks before you can get anywhere in life, right? Still work on the things you have to work on, still make progress, but don't expect to go and hit that goal until you've addressed these internal doubts, these internal blockages, right? So that's all I have for this video. If you're still watching, go ahead and click that first link in the description to go check out Self-Improvement Synthesized. Right now I'm running a 7-week program where I'm teaching routine mastery, which is my new course coming out very soon. So go ahead and click that link in the description to go and check that out. And if you would like to go and book a one-on-one call with me where we can talk about a actual program, a coaching program where I work with you one-on-one to make more progress in your self-improvement, then you can go ahead and do that as well. Aside from that, if you would like to learn more about self-improvement and more about progress and how to basically get on your shit, go ahead and click that subscribe button. But other than that, I'm out of here, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.